going to make this the eye controller for here. And again, you know what I was saying before about this layer. You know, we could go in and we could rotate it, but I don't really want my animator, which is me in this case, I don't really want them to have to do that. We can make it easier for them. So to do that, you would use a smart bone. So let's grab this one here. I'm going to call it eye direction. Okay. And then here we've got smart bones, and we can add a new one, eye direction. We actually need to make two. I'll explain why. What smart bones are is they're kind of ways of recording actions with bones. And what it does is it actually splits it. I could maybe do it with one. The way that I've been imagining it, I'll do it with two for now. Basically, it's going to rotate 90 degrees, and what I need to make sure is the action, that movement is happening linearly. So that's just a linear motion, because we're going to animate this later, and I might put a smooth keyframe on it, or I might use the motion graph and use Bezier curves to like animate this. So when I'm setting the action, I don't want it to have any unusual interpolation on it. I just want it to have a linear move, so I can record exactly what I want it to do, which will be rotating this. So I've just recorded that up until 30 frames, that bone rotating. And what I want to do is I want to rotate that 180 degrees. So basically, when that bone moves, I want that layer rotate. Pretty simple, right? And same with the other way. That's why I made two. That's why I've made two actions here. So I'm gonna go the other way now, and then I'm gonna choose the same eye, and then I'm gonna rotate it. Where are we? I'm gonna rotate it 180 degrees counterclockwise. If that makes sense. So now what we should have is, now this bone controls that. How cool is that? I would even go a step further possibly, and let me set a keyframe just yet. We don't need any weight on it. It's just a controller bone. Mind we were making targets for the IK. Could do the same here. So I'm going to call this eye target, and then I want this bone to follow that one. So target, eye target. So now what we should have is, let's play it. Now we can move that eye with its target, and that'll follow it. How cool is that? We could even turn these off. You can hide bones, and I'm gonna even just feeling funky. I color it blue. So now you can just see how quickly we've got more and more control. And this is like quite a creative process. This is again what I'm so into Moho for. It's like, you know, it's an unusual rig. There's one eye, and it's centered, and it's attached to a mouth, and you know, it should be independent, and I want a controller for it. But you know, Moho's letting me, I can kind of be creative with that process of like how I want to rig something like that. I go one step further with, because it's very flat style. It's very, I mean, you know, we are in a 2D program. It is 2D, but I often do kind of like to force a sort of slight 3D perspective on things. And what I use this other circle as a guide to do that. So let me just quickly show you that. It's the same principle as, it's the same principle as what we've just done, really. It's just they're facing different ways. Basically what I'm doing is making two smart bones. So these are going to record actions just like we've done before. And they're gonna use this circle. So I found a sweet spot, by the way, of putting 35 degrees there. And the reason is just at the very extreme position, that's gonna just skim the circle. So I'm gonna put a controller just like that here. So it just means when we're over here, we're at the extreme position of left, right, up and down. Kind of, kind of experimenting with the angle constraints here. But yeah, I've called it up, down, and left, right. So all I need to do here is make some smart bones. So I can actually do it only with 2, but the way I've probably just going to do it with 4, just because it'll probably be quite easy to show you what I mean. I'm going to choose 30 frames. You can choose any amount of frames really, but I'm going to take it to its extreme right position. So when it's over there, it's at its extreme. And then same the other way with the other action. I've split it into 2 actions. So it's actually one action is going to be recorded for the right hand side and one action is going to be called for the left hand side. I could do it with 1, but it's just the way that I've jumped in. This is going to be up, and here it's going to be down. Oh, I put that frame 1. I should put that frame 30. So now we've kind of got our action set, and now I'm going to do a very, very quick, it'll be quite rough this, a very quick sort of full 3D displacement thing here. So when it turns to the right, I want this boat to move over here, and I'm even gonna, because I'm crazy, I'm gonna shear it. Can I shear it that way? So you can see it's gonna move that way. It's gonna make these all linear because we want to. Oh no, we don't want to ease in and out. We don't want to do that. Don't do that. Okay, same the other side. So when it moves the other way, I'm gonna do it this way, and I'm gonna shear it again. I haven't learned your lesson well. I'm gonna shear it that way. This is so rough, but you just get feeling for it. And we'll do the same up and down. So let's go. Okay, let's move this bone up here and shear it. Wow, 3rd time in a row, unbelievable. So that's gonna be the up action, and then we'll move it down here. So let's quickly do that. Where are we? And move it down. And I've learned my lesson. I'm going to select those and then pull it down. The only slight thing, because I'm being particular now that I've come all this way, I'm going to just shift the hat a little bit. So when he moves there, it's going to move down. And then when over there, I think it will move the other way. Just going to force the perspective a little bit. His head moves up, probably going to move down, isn't it? And then when it moves down, it's going to go, that's probably going to go down again, isn't it? Right. Okay, so that's it sort of there. We've got left and right, up and down. And all we need to do now is make a target in here. Wow, that's not in the middle. That'll do. And then select those, and I'm going to make it, name it, let's call it head 3D. I know it's not 3D, but you know, you get the idea. So let's go target, head 3D. And now these two are going to follow it at the same time. And that's basically how, now we can hit record. Basically how I'm making like a fake, not even 3D really, it's just like giving me more control of the character. When you click off these, you can't see it, but really quickly, right? So that's like in the space of not that long. That's kind of how I would rig it.
So yeah, let's jump into the questions and go for a main general one about how did you become an animator and what are your main references or inspirations?
It's a big that's a broad one. How did I become an animator? I think I always wanted to be an animator. When I was younger, I was really into I was too young to watch it, but I loved South Park. I loved it. My mum let me watch it when I was too young. I just loved that it was just little bits of paper. And obviously, like it was originally like it was just it was actually done under a rostrum camera. But then as soon as like I was old enough to understand it, that it's like actually all rigged in the computer. I think it was Maya, or it was originally Maya. It's like I was like, oh, that's so flipping exciting. Like that you can. It's a bit like playing with toys. It's like there's it kind of like harks to some sort of childhood thing for me. It's like I'm making these things that are like they're like little toys that I can play with, and I just find it so exciting. But in answer to the question, yeah, about it being where did you get influenced by? Probably like TV, like shows like South Park. Obviously, everyone loves The Simpsons. And I think just generally it felt like the most challenging thing to do. I think even as a teenager, it's like making animation. It's like, wow, that's a fucking hard thing. Pardon me. That's a hard thing to like to do, and it's sort of like a life's work. You're like always would be coming up with new ideas, and you can kind of throw stuff at it. I find it like just such an exciting thing to do, and I'm just happy that that's what I get to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, Will, and how did you record the animation in real time?
So in this, like for this as an example, you just hit play and then you move it, and then it'll just record it. It's like auto keying being turned on in Blender. Pretty rad. Just so it's just that easy. I'm not pretending, by the way, Mario, that I animated Betty all like this. Like it's more labored than that. Like but that is how I would often just like, for example, I would record things like eyes moving really quickly like that, and then it's down, and then I'd move on. So it's like I'd be selective as to like what things I would record live and what things I wouldn't. But things like, oh, that's my timer. Oh, it was actually less than 45. Sorry about that. I read the time up on my top right. That's that. But when it comes to like actually, animating, like things, I would probably use the motion graph here. Again, I'm doing what I normally do. I'm trying to multitask. But yeah, I would animate like this for things that really need like locked and got like now that's ridiculous, but I would animate like this for like walk cycles and stuff like that. But for loads of things, I would just do it live. I actually did oh, maybe you can look at it on my website. I did a thing for MTV and it was all animated, like just with the dragging points in Moho, and it's like it just gives it an energy that I really like. Like the more and more I'm animating, the more and more I've done loads of like really detailed animation for years and years, the more like freed up I feel now. I feel like I just want to bash things out and just not worry too much about be more into the process and just fire things out and just be less precious. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. Yeah, I answered like I made up another question that I just answered there. So sorry about that. So me.
And Will, how do you do the lip sync on your animations?
That's a good question. that's actually what I was. That's what I was probably should have spent my last few minutes doing. So I record it. So in this film, I've done the voice of this thing. It's awful. Let's hear it. Where's the bear? There. You just bring it in as an audio file. Here. Got a rogue leg here. Let me just clear that out. Where are we? So, good thing about Moho. Sorry, it's going to annoy me. I need to clear it. The good thing about Moho is you see the waveform here. So, a little bit slow here. But the way I would do it, I've got a little tip for you here. Actually, this is gold. I learned this from friends of mine that are stock frame animators who have worked at like Hardman, Leica. What they say is when you're putting your mouse shapes down, say if it's like, well, where's the bar starts with a W. So like the W is actually about there. Trick, you go back a couple frames and set it. So that's a W. Where? So like let's just bring this up here. We'll quickly lay it down. If you click on your switch layer, it'll come up here, and what you can see is it's changed here, so it's switched to W. So like where, it would be A. So like I would choose A. There's S is like showing your teeth, I think. Where's and the would show a little tongue probably. Where's the playing a bit slow, but you get the idea. Where's the little B for butter? So what I try to do, let's do butter, let's go O, but, and then T again. So you get the idea. It's not playing back very fast, but that's kind of how you lay it down. You kind of find out where they're called phonemes. You kind of split up the dialogue, you listen to it, and then whack it back a couple of frames because you see things before you hear them. Could have gone at the end there. Oh, and then T again. And then, you know, I would go through and do the whole thing of dialogue. Like, and that could be like, you could spend a lot, you know, I could spend a good couple of hours doing that. And then I'd add another layer of, remember we got their actions for like blinking and stuff. So I could drop one with a 1, and then I could shut his eye when he's saying that. There's 2. Is 2 set? No, 2 isn't set. And then let's close his eye there. It's cool because you can just click on the layer that you want, you know, to switch. So, you know, you can do it here. You can go, all right, okay, they're all there. Or like what I said during the presentation, you can like switch here if you're not familiar with the character and you want to see what the shapes are like. But I just love that you can just grab it up here. It's just really practical. And then as soon as you start not doing that, what am I doing, man? As soon as you start like animating rest of the character, you start to come alive, right? I have absolutely no idea if I answered that question, but that's essentially like how I go about lip sync. It's just like,
no, you definitely answered it. So thank you so much. It looks awesome. And so here's another question from Cynthia. How did you show the bones in the final export? Did you show the bones?
That's a good question. So let me bring up. That's a really good question. So in the film, let me just bring it up. In the film, I originally was kind of recording screen caps of Moho, but I think just generally speaking, is this kind of, maybe I'm hoping that this is what you're meaning. It's like I actually made like placeholder artwork and then made another rig. Let me show you. Is it here? Oh, it's actually in the Butter file. So let's go. Where's the Butter update? Okay, so where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting there. Just bear with me. You've had to bear with me for an entire hour, but you just need to bear with me a little bit longer. The what I have done is I've made another rig. I've made a copy of the rig, I think. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. So look, there's a bones folder. So this is kind of like, this was for the sake of the film. Like I wanted to like be able to toggle on and off these lines that kind of in the film it kind of switches between like showing bones and not showing bones. And what I did is I just copied the rig. I just copied. Oh, did I copy the rig? No, I've just put them in a folder on top of all the parts. So when you move everything, it's like we're looking at it that it's got bones on it, but they're actually just vector lines. But it sort of sells the idea, I think, of because in the film, obviously, as I said, it's like, yeah, it's just a vector line in place of a bone. But in the film, it's sort of like looking at the armature. I think I wanted a little more control, and I didn't want to just like steal Moho's bones and show that in the film. I wanted to kind of just make it a little more authored, and you know, just have these like wires really. But in the film, if you watch it, like for anyone who hasn't, they kind of switch on and off, and again, it's just quite, yeah, sort of reminds you that he's a puppet. But that's how I did it, if that makes sense.
Yes, and it looks awesome. It's a great way to solve the bones.
Whoa.
And well, here's another question from Mike Pickup from Wales. I love your choice of camera work in Betty. What was your inspiration?
It's totally Moho. So like it's like that. Look, say I'm watching this here, and if you zoom in and you go, you know, Command plus, and then I'd move along like this. That's how I would actually navigate Moho. So you know, you can zoom in like this vector and not lose any resolution, and then zoom out. So basically, what I'm doing right now is what I'm doing as I'm making Betty. So I felt like, oh, well, that's the way the camera works in the world, in this world. You know, in this little world of being stuck in a viewport, animating this little guy called Bobby, it's like command plus, command minus. So in the film, that's how the camera should move. I think, well, it made sense. It made sense to me that, you know, and I've kind of, and the way I've done it is I've just like, how have I done it? I comped it in After Effects actually. I think I just, oh no, I didn't. I just zoomed in here. I think I put, yeah, this is what I did. I put it in a scale. I put everything in a folder, and then I just scaled it up by like 1 or 2 to zoom in like one frame, like a switch, and then that gives the, you know what I mean? It gives the, see, like the camera's already, yeah, it's baked in. I didn't do enough. So I've zoomed in there, zoomed out here, just on one frame, and I've dragged it. You know, like I've shown you that auto key thing that you just drag things around and it records it. I've just dragged it about to give it like, to give this feeling, panning. Just like drag that layer. So like let's move it. Then that'll record it. Kind of simple, really. Just trying to think of kind of try and stay true to like what it's like being in the software, really, with the camera moves for Betty anyway. That makes sense.
No, and it looks awesome. It's just a simple but smart solution for solving the camera. And here's another question from Kayla Sanchez. What was the toughest challenge you encountered while working?
On Betty, I assume.
Yes.
Or just generally, what do you think?
No, on Betty.
That's a good question. I think, well, kind of have to assume that some people have seen it. Like, I think the film is like it's like there's a little animated drama happening, and it's like a love story, and the love breaks apart. So the film sort of breaks apart, and because I've introduced this other element of like there's a director's commentary, and you hear me making the work and talking about what it means, it's like it wasn't always originally like that. It was like I was actually trying to make a film that made sense in its entirety, like a little fiction drama. So I suppose the hardest thing was like letting go of that. And I think the hardest thing actually is the narrative stuff, because after being an animator for years, I kind of know, I'm not at all pretending I know how to do everything. I definitely don't. But like, I know how to animate quickly. I know how to technically move these things and set them up so that they can do what I want them to do. But at the end of the day, it's a story. So I think, yeah, the hardest thing really is kind of getting the narrative right and not making it too sentimental. I think it is. It should be funny enough, sad. It's the storytelling aspect, I think, that is the most challenging, but the most important, really, at the end of the day.
Yep. And so here's another question from Tony
Wow, loads of
regarding.
questions.
Yes, sorry
I can't
guys,
believe it.
we're reaching actually to
No, I'm
our
not
time.
complaining. I'm just super glad that people are asking me questions. That's super.
No, there's a ton of questions, and unfortunately, we're reaching the end
Oh,
of the
wow.
webinar. But one of the last questions we'll do is regarding to compositing. Tony asked if you use Moho to gather all the scenes in one file and then rendering, or if you use a second software to do the compositing.
So as I was showing there, I did composite some of it in After Effects, but like I actually do a lot of compositing. Like I work as a compositor sometimes. I've spent a lot of time in After Effects, but with this, it was almost like a little bit of a two fingers up to doing that, because I kind of wanted a break from it. So I literally, the only compositing that I was doing was I was literally just mastering it in After Effects, I think, because I think I started putting it out like, so this is like 2K wide, yeah, CineScope widescreen. I started putting it out at like you know like 2 times that, or 3 times that image sequences, and then comping so I could zoom in and get the resolution. That's how I started compositing. But I just found that there was really no point when I kind of realized that I could do absolutely all of it in Moho just by scaling layers. So it's like, scaling layers, like, we needed to punch in, I just punched in like that, and suddenly I just rendered it in there essentially. I tried to do it so that I had control over the camera after, so I could choose later, but I found I used Moho so much, I just found like, oh, I'll just do it all in Moho, really. There was one bit I did a bit of compositing. I think the first scene in the bar, there's a bit of compositing, but that was it. I tend to work chronologically as well, so like I quite like starting the film at the start and then doing the last scene of the film right at the end, so it like keeps me on my toes and it keeps me like able to change the story a little bit. That's kind of like how I like to do it. But yeah, compositing was like mainly in Moho.
Well, just one last question to close the webinar. What are your recommendations for anybody who is starting in Moho, in the animation world? what would you say to somebody who's a beginner in Mojo and want to explore the software?
Just jump in and do it. It's really quick to learn. It's super fast, and generally speaking, just like what I've found is that I when I came out of college, when I was in college, I thought, oh, no one wants to really watch what I do or cares about my little brain and what I think and my heart. But like the more and more I just think that's wrong. I think like just be totally honest and do your thing and just be yourself, and like people will notice. You know, it's when you don't do anything that's the problem. Just jump in, and Moho's great for it. Like honestly, it's so fast and
Awesome.
make stuff.
So thank you so much, Will. This has been a really fun and enlightening webinar. So we want to thank you for your presentation. We want to thank everybody who joined us today. And before we go, let me just share one last bit of information.